Very good morning. I'm Ken from Hong Kong Life Sciences Society. Thank you for joining our panel discussion as part of the Society's summer internship programs. Last week, we had two speakers, Kelly and Gladys, if you remember them correctly, the spelling as well as their background, sharing their experience from a career and HR perspective. And today, we're very lucky to have another two speakers, Edward Chen, Assistant Director of InnoAcademy of Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, and Andy Wong, Head of Innovation Technologies in Invest Hong Kong. A bit about Edward first. He is currently the Vice President and Director of the Harvard Club of Hong Kong and co-chair of the Future Foundation's Committee of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong. Before his current role at Science Park, Edward helped international enterprise and startup established R&D operation in Science Park. Of course, we also have Andy here, Andy Wong. We got two Andy here actually, but I'm talking Andy Wong. And he is from Invest Hong Kong. Andy leads a team of technology specialists with major focus on attracting and facilitating overseas investment in Hong Kong for setting up and expanding their operation in the form of sales and marketing, regional headquarters, research and development, and or innovation center in Hong Kong. Edward and Andy will respectively talk about their organizations, HKSTP, as mentioned, a public corporation, and Invest Hong Kong, a government department with the mission to attract and retain direct investment, foreign investment in Hong Kong, right? Both of them will give us a bigger picture this time with focus on the biotech and healthcare ecosystems, and in the context of post-pandemic situation. They will also help touch upon the hardware support programs and cross-border opportunities as for both graduates and investors. First, Edward will give a 20 minutes overview of Science Park, and then Andy will do another 20 minutes for Invest Hong Kong. After that, we'll be able to open the floor to receive questions and have a little bit of discussions. Attendants, of course, are encouraged to ask questions or just simply text us in the chat box, and we'll be able to select questions. And then we will have a round of discussions towards the end of this panel discussion. So without further delay, let's welcome our first speaker, Edward Chen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. Thank you very much, Hong Kong Life Sciences Society, for inviting me today. So let me share my presentation. Everybody can see it, right? Okay, cool. So thank you again. I'm Edward. I'm actually from a unit called HKSTP InnoAcademy at the Hong Kong Science Park. Later on, I will explain what I do more. But the gist is that my role is to engage young talents like you guys, so that more of you will join Hong Kong's innovation and technology ecosystem. So back to today's topic, from bench to bedside, biomedical technology translation in Hong Kong. The reason that I use this title is because this exactly describes what Science Park is doing in the life sciences domain. So, I suppose most of you, or at least some of you, have been to our park before, but actually, end of June last month, actually, we had a very special guest. You probably have read that in the news. We have very honored to have President Xi Jinping visit us during his very short trip to Hong Kong. So actually, during his visit, our CEO, Albert, the gentleman in the top right corner, he introduced to President Xi 7 scientific innovations in Hong Kong Science Park. And actually, out of the 7, 2 are biomedical sciences related. One is actually an innovation by Professor Dennis Low. You guys will have already heard of him, prenatal diagnostics. And the other one is actually a surgical robot from our partner company. So the fact that 2 out of the 7 innovations are biomedical sciences related, I think is very strong proof that we in Hong Kong, we really have a lot of potential in the biomedical sciences space. In the bottom right corner, you probably recognize her. She is Professor Nancy Ip, the incoming president of HKUST. So during President Xi's visit, she also showed him around the lab, and Hong Kong lab, which is the her research is on neurodegenerative diseases. So again, it's biomedical sciences related. So what I wanted to say here is, if in Hong Kong, if you want to look for key players in the biomedical spaces, I think Science Park is really the place to be. Okay, so well, what do we do? What does Science Park do? Many people associate us as just a landowner. While some of that is true, I think more importantly, our role is actually building a vibrant innovation and technology ecosystem right in Hong Kong. And on this chart, you can see all the different components required to actually build a vibrant ecosystem. If you look at more mature ecosystems like Shenzhen's or Beijing's, Shanghai's or Silicon Valley's, they have all of these factors. And our goal here in Science Park, the different teams that we have, we want to facilitate things happening in each of these different spaces. And I will talk more later. So more specifically, Science Park is at the middle. Our full name is Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, short form HKSTP. You also see the word ITR next to it. So I will describe what that is shortly. But basically, what we do is we have all these different connections and networks, right? We help connect the partner companies located in our ecosystem with all these different players around the, say, universities, government authorities, investors, etc., so that to help them grow. Our goal, our mission is very clear. We want to help the partner companies succeed. And if you look at this following slide, is on ITR, which stands for Institute for Translational Research. So basically, ITR is one of our teams here at HKSTP, focused on biomedical sciences companies and talents and researchers. And we have about 40-50 people on this team, and our role is described by these 3 bullet points on this slide. Translation from R&D, from laboratories, laboratory bench, all the way to bedside, to application. Of course, we also need to help our researchers located in our park, such as those in the Hong Kong labs, commercialize their research so that they can spin off their research into businesses, products, and services that actually benefit our society. And of course, overall, we want to help build Hong Kong into a preeminent hub for translational research and development. So specifically, what kinds of companies are there in Science Park? So at Science Park, we currently have more than 1,100 technology companies, big and small, and about 170 are companies in the biomedical space. So that includes bigger companies to all the way to startups, what we call incubators, because I'll describe to you later, we actually have an incubation program to help startup grow. And now in Science Park, we have over 1,000 researchers from 12 countries. So our community is actually pretty big, pretty diverse as well. And if you look at the pie chart on the left, you can see the breakdown of the types of companies in Hong Kong Science Park right now. So diagnostics and medical devices they make up the majority of the mix of the biomedical companies here. But we also have some emerging areas like stem cell regenerative medicine. And if you look at the right, you can see all the different names of the companies located in Science Park. You can see some very big names like KingMed, for instance, a very well-known diagnostics company, which is also involved with the COVID testing here in Hong Kong now. Face Scientific, also another very up and coming tech company here in Science Park. You probably have used their COVID RAT testing kit, and you probably see the ads on trams if you live on Hong Kong Island as well. So they are up and growing diagnostics companies, and they started at Science Park, but now their business is all over the world. So also, there are also, I suppose, actually just before this session, our colleagues from Hong Kong Life Sciences Society told us that you will also engage with some of the companies in Hong Kong Science Park as part of your program. So definitely there are lots of opportunities here in Science Park for biomedical talents like you guys in different areas. Okay, I talk about our incubation program. So one very important role that we play is to incubate startups. And IncuBio is our incubation program focused on biomedical companies. So as you can see, it's a 4-year program, right? And we actually provide quite a generous amount of funding to our startups. And what's special about it is, unlike a lot of the more privately run incubators, we don't take equity. So it's really grants money. Of course, it's not easy to get in. You need to reach certain milestones, but it's a very generous program, and it's not just money. And if you see if you look at the chart on the diagram on the right, we provide all sorts of support to you. In fact, I think our biggest value add is really our ecosystem because of all the network, all the connections that we have that we can help startups grow. We also run co-incubation programs. So basically, like we partner with some prominent or established biomedical companies in the space like KingMed, AstraZeneca, etc. So again, it's not just money. More important is really the network and the connections. So for instance, you can see for the program that we're running with KingMed, we also provide coaching, mentorship, access to the facilities in Guangzhou, or even potentially investment funding from them. So this is just a sample of what we have, and we are building more partnerships with established players in the space to help our startups grow. So I do want to talk about the infrastructure. If you remember that chart at the very beginning, the different components of a viral INT ecosystem, infrastructure is a key part, especially in the biomedical space, because a lot of the up and coming smaller companies, they may not be able to afford to build their own infrastructures or the labs. So that's where we come in. So we have this Biomedical Technology Support Center. I hope when you come into Science Park in the future, you have a chance to visit. But we actually have all sorts of facilities, basically shared facilities for the companies located inside Science Park. So they don't need to build their own labs, storerooms, etc., and other more expensive equipment facilities that they can access in our shared facilities. This is also something that we're building right now. You see translational research, right, from bench to bedside. Basically, every stage of the R&D processes, we want to provide the infrastructure to the entrepreneurs and companies to help them succeed. I do want to highlight especially the middle part, the Drug Safety Center. Actually, in Hong Kong, right now, there's no GLP accredited. GLP means good laboratory practice for drugs testing R&D. There's actually no GLP accredited facility in Hong Kong for this purpose, for animal testing, basically. And we are building the first. And we are also getting approval or certification from the major regulatory authorities in the US, Europe, and mainland China for that. So that's what we're building right now. And towards the end, you also see the GMP, which stands for Good Manufacturing Practice, also a very important certification in the process of drug manufacturing, so that companies can also do some small batch manufacturing of drugs in the Science Park, which in the past, people it will not be possible. But now we're actually working with Hong Kong U and CUHK to build this facility. So, well, this is just more details on the GLP drug safety testing center that I mentioned earlier. We strongly believe that this can fill one of the current gaps in the R&D processes of drugs, basically in Hong Kong. I do want to highlight two other programs that we're doing. One is this, the clinical translational catalyst. So it's a program also open to our partner companies, helping them to, again, translate the research from bench to bedside. And basically, we will provide all, not just money, again, but different types of support, regulatory support, networking, advice from our key partners, etc., to help them bridge the so-called valley of death. If you look at the top right corner, bottom right corner, because it's actually a lot of the startups or often fail in this valley of death because they can't really translate their research and bring it to market and to grow their business so that they can succeed. And that's where we want to help them through this program. The other program that we're doing is because we have over 170 companies here in Science Park, right? And sometimes there are actually a lot of synergies between the companies inside the Science Park. So we also have this MedTech Co-Create program to basically help the different types of companies in our ecosystem connect with each other and collaborate. Of course, there's some financial support, but more importantly, it's really sometimes because one company cannot do everything, right? Like if they partner with each other, they can leverage the resources that they all have, and 1 + 1 can be bigger than 2. So once you pass the incubation stage, say you graduate from our 4-year IncuBio program, and you're ready for the next stage of your company development, we actually have other types of programs to support you. Here on this chart, you can see we have acceleration program, we have elite program. Basically, that for companies going into this stage, they already have passed the prototype stage, or they have even received seed or angel funding. So it's really scaling up. We have different types of financial support, as well as specialized teams taking care of the different needs to help them really grow big. Of course, money is very important, right? Very important role that Science Park does is helping our companies raise money, especially in the biomedical space, because the upfront investment can be quite huge for biomedical companies. So we help companies in 2 ways. One is our own fund. So unlike the IncuBio program that I mentioned earlier, for this types of investment, of course, the investment amount would be much bigger, but at the same time, we will take equity. But more importantly, sometimes like once we invest, our external private sector companies, they also will see our investment as a sign of acknowledgement or endorsement of the companies, and they are more willing to invest in those companies. So that's why you see that leverage ratio in the middle of this chart. So every $1 that we invest in companies, we did our analysis, companies actually are able to raise over $13 from the private market as well. So it's a leverage effect. So that's number one. But of course, like sometimes we don't invest in the companies, but we can help them connect with our very strong network of over 1,000 companies, 1,000 investors all around the world, so that they can also invest in them. So next, talent. Another very important component of our tech ecosystem. That's actually what I do in the Science Park. As I said, I'm from a unit called HKSTP InnoAcademy. So our role is really to engage and to attract or to nurture talent like you guys to join our I&T ecosystem. The reason being that is, as you can imagine, without talent, no company can actually be run. no company can grow without talent. And actually, in Hong Kong right now, we are running into quite a bit of challenges around talent because many companies in Hong Kong, they say they cannot find the right people. It's very hard for them to hire. And so that's where we come in. We design all types of programs, collaborations. We do all sorts of activities so that more talent understand the opportunities in the R&T ecosystem in Hong Kong, and they can find a career path in our space. I'm sure Hong Kong's Life Sciences Society actually have done immense amount of work in the space too, with the internship program, mentorship, etc. So we all work together so that we really can funnel more talent into the ecosystem to help the companies grow and help Hong Kong become an international R&T hub. This slide actually shows all the talent initiatives that HKSTP is doing. It's not just for tertiary students or graduates like you guys. Our work actually starts much earlier. We start engaging secondary school students when they are about to choose their major in universities. So we have experience programs for them. We run training programs, and very importantly, we run placement programs. For those of you looking for full-time job in the future, make sure you follow us on social media so that you know what types of opportunities are available. Because we basically help our partner companies hire people like young graduates like you guys, and of course the community. We need to build a community, really retain and to keep the talent in our ecosystem, so that networking among the talents, among the practitioners is also very important. So this is the value of depth that I mentioned earlier, right? So to summarize, our job is really to de-risk so that the companies don't fall into the valley of death, and they can successfully bridge from laboratory research, from the bench, all the way to bedside, to application, to commercialization. So these are all the different kind of components I described in my short presentation. But yeah, valley of death, bridging the valley of death, and translational research, that's actually what we mean and what we do at Hong Kong Science Park. So there's a very short summary of what we do. Actually, this year is our 20th anniversary at Science Park, and we firmly believe that innovation starts here. The reason being that Hong Kong Science Park, or even Hong Kong, is just a starting point. We firmly believe that for tech companies to succeed, you really need to go beyond Hong Kong. To the GBA, or even to the mainland China, or even the rest of the world, and that's actually our mission here. We'll look forward to answering any of your questions later during the Q&A session. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Edward. He made several very good points. In particular, Hong Kong needs to make bench to bedside happen. Moreover, nurturing talent and communicating science with the non-science community is also very important. As for our next speaker, Andy from Invest Hong Kong, we'll discuss more about what Invest Hong Kong do to take the bench to bedside to boardroom. So without further ado, let's pass on to Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. So good morning to everyone. So first of all, I'd like to thank you, Hong Kong Life Science Society, to give me the chance to have a chat on Saturday morning with so many people on the line. And it's also the future of the Hong Kong for those people. And in addition to Ken, thank you, Virginia, for helping me, and also Presley. So maybe the next slide, please, Virginia. So, okay. So a little bit about Invest Hong Kong. So we are the government agency. Our role is to promote and help foreign companies to invest in Hong Kong, meaning that help them to set up the business in Hong Kong. With the goal is to boost up the Hong Kong economy through, and also to leverage international technologies to build a better Hong Kong. And for Invest Hong Kong, we divided into different sector, or what we call cluster. The cluster that I'm leading is called Innovation and Technologies, and we also have other cluster who look after maybe the transportation, maybe the financial service, and or consumer product as well. Within the innovation and technologies, biomedical is one of the major top priorities that I need to focus. And also this is the 14 5-year plan, making Hong Kong to become the international INT hub. So biomedical definitely will be the key major one. And in addition to that, I know that some people who join the line may not 100% on the biomedical. Don't worry, we also look after the other side, like for example, the smart city or semiconductor, more hardware side, electronic side, and also the sustainability, the green aspect as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I think Edward has talked about the Hong Kong Science Park, but I would like to focus more on the a bit wider picture for Hong Kong to tell why most people would select, or some company or most foreign company would think Hong Kong is an ideal place for doing business. First of all, is the Hong Kong is in the city in the central of Asia. The talent that we have, although talent is always be pleasures to have, but given that we have the top-notch kind of university in Hong Kong, every year we grown so many talent from Hong Kong. Tax definitely is an advantage, lower tax rate, simple tax rate. The government supportive program that I will touch on a little bit more later on. The regulatory reform regime, which is the common law system, the banking system, IP protection, which is very transparent. And also we have the GBA opportunity as well. I will also mention a little bit more later on. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah. So just a holistic view about when we talk about the life science or healthcare or medtech, whatever, then I think these 8 boxes will give a snapshot of why we think Hong Kong could be an ideal place for either personal career development or for foreign company to set up the business in Hong Kong. The number one is that we have the good infrastructure in the healthcare system. We also offer the dual-track healthcare system. For those people in Hong Kong, must know that we have a very efficient cover or a very affordable cover public healthcare system, which is 90% of inpatient are offered by the public 40-something hospital in Hong Kong. And then the rest of 10% inpatient will be provided by the private, highest life expectancy in the world. Academic side, 5 university top 100, 2 medical school in Hong Kong, Hong Kong U and Chinese U. And also we have the KOL in different aspects of the scientific research. The other side is about the government side, will be the commitment that we put into the market, including the kind of different kind of funding, and also we have a research cluster. Some people may have heard about the Hong Kong research cluster, which is set up by the government. And then 2 important research cluster. One is for the health, the other is for the AI robotics. So the idea is that we want the global collaboration with different academic research all over the world. So one part of the center, there will be around 28 centers. So 16 belongs to the healthcare, and then the rest belongs to the AI robotics. So the university from Hong Kong will collaborate with the university all in the other side of the world. So join together to develop some sort of innovative technologies in that particular area. The fourth one is about the startup. So different incubation program run by different organizations, like for example, Invest Hong Kong. We have the Start Me Up Festival coming up in a couple of months later. And then the whole idea is to drive the more connection, provide a platform so that we can connect different stakeholders together. The fifth one is about the funding platform. No doubt Hong Kong is the top leading kind of IPO platform. In particular, for the biomedical, we launched the scheme called Chapter 18A. It's a pre-revenue, pre-profit kind of IPO scheme. So far it's the very attractive for company who is trying to get more funding to support their the innovation journey. So it's a pre-profit, pre-revenue kind of scheme available in Hong Kong. So we are the second after New York in terms of the IPO, the dollar size. Right? The sixth is about the IP protection I mentioned earlier. The seventh is about the clinical trial. For example, the Science Park over that program subsidized to drive the clinical trial. In addition to that, the trial that we done in Hong Kong for the Prince of Wales or Queen Mary's Hospital, accredited by the EMA, FDA, and also NMPA as well. And because of we have the different KOL in different aspects, so it help us to become qualified, accredited kind of a clinical trial. And then the last one is about the GBA, stand for Greater Bay Area Opportunity, which is the 7+2 kind of concept. 7 cities in mainland China, 2 cities is one in Hong Kong, one is Macau. To provide a population of 86 million, which is very large already, and then 1.7 trillion, which is the same size as Australia or even bigger than Australia in terms of the GDP level. And the GBA, we also have different facilitation measure which help to stimulate the synergy between the 7 cities in mainland China and also the city in Hong Kong or Macau. Next slide, please. Thank you. So quickly for the rest of the slide is a more have a more substantial information about what I just told about the 8 boxes in the previous slide. So for the healthcare system dual track, right? So it's run by the hospital authority. Under the Department of Health, we have the drug office for regulating the drugs, and now also have the medical device control office to oversee the medical device being used in Hong Kong. We opt for the voluntary registration scheme. That means that for medical device has been approved by the FDA or other EMA in Europe, and then we can use that equipment in Hong Kong by the authorized authority. So that means that we can have a more advanced kind of a medical device being used in Hong Kong in the early stage in Hong Kong. That's the beauty for the voluntary registration scheme in Hong Kong. And then hospital authority, right? As I mentioned, 43 hospitals in 7 clusters, providing 90% of inpatient, and we are the longest life expectancy in Hong Kong. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next, yeah. So hospital authority, they moving towards what we call smart hospital, not just hospital authority, but also the hospital in, say, Chinese university. They're all moving to smart hospital. And then within the smart hospital, it can divide into 5 bigger buckets, right? So smart care, which is using the latest digitization, like smart pharmacy, right? So robotic to pick up the drugs, mobile apps, teleconsultation, Dr. Go, for example, clinical support system, and etc. So it is more to do with the provide better patient experience to the patient. So it's a smart care. And then within the hospital, they have the smart hospital management system, scheduling, operation, and command center, all based on more advanced kind of platform. Facility itself, right? So the connectivity within the hospital, and then there's hospital support, like a tracking system, logistics, using the blockchain, for example, and then also other system implemented for managing the staff as well. So the next slide, please. So apart from the what we call the smart hospital, to drive the innovation, hospital authority itself have an innovation lab in Kowloon Bay, which is for the vendor, they can put their solution into that innovation lab for those doctor to go there to look at it, and also the medical personnel to look at that to see whether it's a good fit for their hospital use. And also they have a huge data available in the hospital authority, and then to drive the collaboration, and also AI lab for the university academic to go there to do some research project. And also they have an innovation portal, so that is open to the public, so that people have some new idea and some innovation that they believe that can be used in hospital environment. They can go to the portal and then to provide those information for the medical people to look at it. Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so in the university, they are not just in Hong Kong, but also have also in GBA. The one before, please. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to say that yeah, so the top 5 university in Hong Kong, and then they also have a technology transfer office, which is how to commercialize their product. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, so the government is very committed. So you can see that they have invested around 150 billion since 2017, and then into different segment, right? Some funding will be for the university own R&D research. Some is going to put into the fund, which is a innovation and technology fund or IT venture fund, which is a matching fund. People can apply to get the funding. Most of the case without taking the share of the company. Some to build the infrastructure like the one in the Science Park Advanced Manufacturing Center, or for the microelectronics, they have a microelectronics center, or expansion for the cyber port, etc. So they have different kind of bucket the government is put into the funding. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then in terms of the funding support, right? So this at the different stage have a different kind of funding. Startup stage, right? Mostly by the Science Park, and also the government has an Innovation and Technology Venture Fund. It is the matching fund, which is kindly drawn funded by the government and also VC. And also the research and development to drive enterprise to look at it. Some like an enterprise scheme and partnership scheme is a one-to-one matching, and some tax deduction for company to apply, a cash rebate for R&D up to 40%, and the salary subsidized for a company who recruit some talent, then they can have a subsidized for different kind of degree people. And then moving on to the adoption phase, then there will be some, for example, innovation programs. The government will award the contract to the company, not just purely look at the lowest price, but also look at the technology element into it. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I just quickly, Hong Kong Science Park definitely have to mention, but it's already covered by Edward, so I'm not going to talk more about that. Next slide, please. And then next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just want to mention a little bit more top-notch innovation, right? So the health at InnoCluster, so there will be 16 in here, and also +2 from the AIR, Hong Kong cluster. But the background is that to go through a collaborative research, right? So the focus area will be including drug discovery, personalized medicine, molecular diagnostic, bioengineering, chemical biology, bioinformatics, vaccine development, medical instrumentation. So all those have different kind of research trying to work together with the university in Hong Kong, also university from overseas to work together. And the ideal case is that it's not purely focused on academic research, but they need to eventually to commercialize those innovations. So it's a 5 years time frame. So we'll be seeing different companies to spin off afterward. Thank you. Next slide, please. Yeah. So another one is the project in Hong Kong is called Genomes Projects, right? It's 1.2 billion DNA whole genome sequencing project. The idea is to accumulate 20,000 cases of patients to collect those data for scientific research purpose and also for clinical application purpose as well. So it will be divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 is already happening, 2,000 cases, and then later on we'll focus on the rest of the case. And it's jointly developed by the Department of Health, Hospital Authority, Chinese University, Hong Kong U, etc. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the startup, right? And then we can see the slide in the middle. So the chart showing that we have increasing number of startup on a yearly basis, and then we have a diversified of founders from United States, UK, France, mainland China, definitely, of course. So you can see that all those figures to show that Hong Kong is driving more and more people to focus on the startup, and then have a more incubation program available in Hong Kong. Next slide, please. IPO, definitely, we are the #1 for the last 7 years, for over the past 12 years to be the largest IPO platform. And the fundraise and the number of fundraise is well leading as well. Next slide, please. And then that Chapter 18A, just a little bit more, will be focused on R&D engagement. Then how to qualify to be a potential candidate to list on the Chapter 18A. At least you have to pass phase 1 clinical trial with no negative response, right? And then you need to have a sophisticated investigator being part of the sponsor as well, and then a market cap of 1.5 billion. But the beauty of it is the pre-revenue, pre-profit kind of scheme. Next slide, please. Yeah. And then IP protection, we run the dual patent registration, either re-registration or original grant patent system in Hong Kong. The strong IP protection because we run in the common law system for the IP protection. Trading definitely is available in Hong Kong because Hong Kong is good for trading due to the low tax rate in Hong Kong. Next slide, please. And then the clinical trial, right? So moving from the medical innovation by the university and also Karolinski, so that we have a lot of good academic innovation happening in Hong Kong, and then moving on to clinical trial, and then the trial is executed. So far, we have 4 hospitals is accredited by the China NMPA, and then the clinical trial data is globally recognized by FDA and EMA as well. Next slide, please. Yeah. And then last few slides is about the GBA, right? So 9 plus 2, sorry, 9 plus 2 city, beg my pardon, is 86 million population, 1.7 trillion. The whole idea is to drive the stimulate the synergy because we have the manufacturing hub and also the innovation to have a fast prototype can be done in the mainland China, but using Hong Kong as a financial center, and also the international innovation hub, so that we can combine the whole area together to drive the economy. Next slide, please. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. And then to compare to, usually we want to compare GBA with other Bay, which is San Francisco, New York, Tokyo Bay. But I think the unique character for Greater Bay Area is that we are a financial center in Hong Kong, innovation and technology hub in Hong Kong for more global. But for the kind of the innovation, Shenzhen and also Dongguan, etc., they also up and rising, and because the convenience of getting all different components, the supply chain in those areas, so we can have a much faster prototype can be done in mainland China, and that, of course, the manufacturing base in China is enormous. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, and talk about that. What we so far we've seen is the current snapshot. So what we are going to see in the future is that we are not just the science park, and then we have in the roadmap we're building the area called Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park, which is about 3 times the size of current science park, which is in the picture is on the green color, and then we will combine another piece of land called Lok Ma Chau Shenting, and then combine them together to become the Shenting Technopole. And this is the Hong Kong side. So across the border, and then you can see the orange part is called Shenzhen INT Zone. And then combining the Shenting Technopole and also Shenzhen INT Zone, and then we build a much bigger, as shown in the dotted red line, it's called Shenzhen Hong Kong INT Cooperation Zone. So this will become the future of the overall INT collaboration by combining the land and also the people from the Hong Kong side, and also cross the river to the other part of Shenzhen to make it a much bigger cooperation zone. And then, although the policy has yet finalized, but the idea is that 1 zone, 2 park, so people could go into the park easily to do the research and also some sort of R&D and also some sort of manufacturing possible for the future of Hong Kong. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the illustrated plan for the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, this is the end of my presentation, and thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. Indeed, both Andy and Edward today reinforce familiar insights that biotechnology or research per se only enable and does not necessarily determine Hong Kong's success in life science, and that innovation is not usefully reduced to hardware or technology advancement. We need the right people, resources, policy, hardware, and incoming money to make the ecosystem flourish. Perhaps we'll be able to open questions to the floor, but before that, may I ask the first question to Andy and Edward? As we all know, Hong Kong doesn't offer chip space, or we offer the smallest space, I would say, compared to Guangzhou or Shenzhen or even Zhuhai, at least in the coming couple of years. before the new co-op zone arriving. In your view, which healthcare or biotech subsector do you think that will offer the biggest room for development with our smallest space?
So usually to answer the question first will be easier. I will pass the difficult part for Edward to answer. So I think we look at the value chain, right? So if from the biomedical, definitely will the diagnostic will be easier to focus, to have a more lower hanging fruit. As we know, drug development takes a long time, and then diagnostic part will be easier and consume less space. And then the second part may be leveraging the computation, so AI, for running the drug discovery. I know there's some star company already in Science Park, which is running the AI for drug discovery as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And Edward?
Yeah, well, actually, I think I want to answer this from another perspective. In fact, Hong Kong, I think, especially those companies located in Science Park, they are really good at R&D. Like when you're talking about processes that take up a lot of space, for instance, like manufacturing, stuff like that, probably they can't really happen in Hong Kong Science Park. They need to happen, say, in our future facilities, or even some companies, they're already taking those processes across the border already or elsewhere in the world. So it's really a division of labor. So I think for all the areas that Andy mentioned earlier, we already have companies doing all of those. It's just that maybe in the whole R&D process, some parts they can be done in Hong Kong because they don't take up a lot of spaces. But for those that take up a lot of spaces, they already need to do it somewhere else before all those new facilities are built. Yeah.
Thank you. If any one of you have questions, do use your raise hand button, and we'll be able to notice your calling, so to say, or you'll be able to type in your question in the chat box. My second question, we keep talking about GBA. Everybody's now talking about GBA. And we will always ask the same questions. In what way would GBA reinforce Hong Kong's status as an innovation hub? Is this like a rhetoric or a reality that when we work with GBA, we'll be able to reinforce our status? Or our status is actually shifting slightly to our neighboring cities, say Singapore or Shenzhen or even Guangzhou?
Okay, maybe I'll also actually, Ken, this question is related to the earlier question, I think. Like because of all the limitations that Hong Kong has, the lack of land, high costs, etc. Like I think Hong Kong needs to focus on some parts of the value chain that we would do well on. We really need to collaborate with the rest of the GBA cities. For instance, even Shenzhen now has a very well-developed I&T ecosystem, right? It's not just manufacturing. They're very strong in software development, for instance. They have a lot of very big biomedical companies. So I just use an example. Say when we talk about drug development, I think Hong Kong, for instance, we can do things like the phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials, the earlier stage. But if you're talking about phase 3, where you need a lot more people to do the trial, or you potentially even want to get approval by the mainland regulatory authorities, at least for now, you can't really do it in Hong Kong. You need to work with Shenzhen. So we hope that, of course, with all the new facilities coming up, the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation Park, etc. So all of these processes can be better integrated in the future. So we each do what we are best at, and together we can create more than 1 + 1, than 2,
Yeah,
thank you.
I think this is a bit very true. So we look at the value chain and then to see what is the Hong Kong competitive advantage. So Hong Kong, that's why Hong Kong position is an international I&T hub. So the international meaning that we are still lucky to be still the gateway between to some certain area, still connect to the overseas market. I think Hong Kong is a lively city, and a lot of people will still love to stationed in Hong Kong, live in Hong Kong. And that's why a lot of, no matter is the senior corporate from company or the more academic research, top-notch people who would love to live in Hong Kong. And then that is important because when we talk about the collaboration, that's why the Hong Kong set up. So the collaboration with the top-notch university, people would like, because they're familiar with the system, if they want to move to Hong Kong, they like the city to live in Hong Kong. That's why we can continue to position Hong Kong in this kind of academic research. And then for the standard, we can make it to China. For example, the hospital standard. So Hong Kong is world-class hospital healthcare system standard. And then in China, we got 3A kind of hospital, but the standard will be different. So how can we bring the standard from Hong Kong to China? And then China will be benefit to this. And then using the facilitation measure like the Medical Connect, we all heard about, which is the commonly used drugs in Hong Kong can be used in the hospital in GBA, which is run by the Hong Kong Medical Institute, which is a Hong Kong U Shenzhen Hospital. And then this is a trialing, and then once the trial, the procedure is familiar, like for the medical device, which is easier, and then it can roll out, increase the market for Hong Kong and for the medical device supplier. And this is similar for the drug as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Actually, on 30th July, a Saturday after, we will have a chance to visit 3 research centers led by Hong Kong U, UST, managed by Professor Nancy Yip, and Professor Lowe's lab, who is also our vice chairman and professors from Chinese U. These 3 research centers are located in STP, Edwards region, so to say, under Hong Kong's clusters, as mentioned by Andy earlier. And more importantly, after that 90 minutes visit, we will have a chance to sit together and mingle a little bit over lunch. So see you in 2 weeks' time. But before we go, still not far from end, we got a question. Right. Oh, it's a pretty long one from Jackie. Probably I'll be able to reiterate a little bit. Right. Discussion mainly focus on the trend of diagnosis and drug development as the big market of life science. And your question is there a large room of opportunity for the growth of synthetic biology, exploiting natural resources like microorganisms and herbs, and apply in daily products? So any one of you be able to answer the questions, Edward or Andy?
Well, I would say it's a very broad question, right? Because I think even under this sector, it can cover a lot of things. You talk about Chinese medicine, you can talk about health supplements, or even a lot of the food tech products that we are seeing now. I think what I can say is we definitely have these types of companies in Hong Kong Science Park, and I believe the reason behind that is that those entrepreneurs see opportunities in the space. Yeah, my answer would be the thing. Businesses in this sector, definitely we have those here in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And Andy?
I may not be very familiar with synthetic biology sector, but I think one of the Hong Kong Center Health at Hong Kong, which is led by Su Ng, professor, and also Professor Francis Chen. I think they're looking at the microbiome. I think maybe you can reach out to him or her to see any for that you can come up to see the growth of your area. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. Jackie, I would advise you to take the questions to our visit, where you'll be able to meet some of our professors. I heard Professor Lowe will be there to receive our new cohort of intern on 30th of July, and you might have a chance to ask him a lot of questions over lunch. So stay tuned. Before we go, I'd like to ask Andy and Edward any quick tips in 2 sentences for our graduating students? Hey, if they want to develop a career in Hong Kong, what would they do in the last year of studies? I know a lot of our interns have a lot of options right now. Some of them came to me say, hey, want to do a postgrad in Canada, in Australia. Some of them would say, hey, I want to try to go doing a working holiday in the UK. And I love to take this opportunity before you guys go. Any advice to students who would really want to develop a career in Hong Kong as a freshman, as a fresh graduate, not freshman, and what would they be able to do in order to better equip themselves for the next 10 months or so?
Yeah, go ahead first, Andy.
Go ahead. Very difficult question, but I think, yeah, I think the overall what I've been looking at the innovation and technology, right? Biomedical definitely is the top priority and also the booming subsector within the innovation technologies. Hong Kong, I think, as you mentioned, Professor Nancy Yee, Professor Dennis Low, a lot of Tony Mock, for example, a lot of QL in Hong Kong. I think the medical school does provide a lot of excellent professor and also student in this area. So continue to your journey in this biomedical journey, and then you will find that the opportunity is here and also in China, because so many listed companies listed in Hong Kong from mainland China, and that biomedical side is booming in China. So that tells it's an ample opportunity is waiting for you. But it's just a matter of finding the area, the particular biomedical area that you want to focus, which you enjoy, and then we'll take you, as you mentioned, not just to the bedside, but also to the boardroom eventually.
Yeah, I think my take is, first of all, I think those of you who are in the Hong Kong Life Sciences Society internship program have already taken a very good step. Because like, I think from my interactions with a lot of the employers here in Science Park, I think many people have told me that what students learn in school and what they actually need from the employees in the workplace, there's a gap. Like so doing internships or some sort of work attachments, or even during term time, for those of you going into senior year, if your program allows you to work, you know, at a biomedical company in Hong Kong or even elsewhere, really take that opportunity to see what working in the industry is like, which from what I've heard so far is very different from your academic studies. So getting as much industry exposure as possible and figuring out what types of roles would be suitable for you, I think I would go with that. Yeah.
Thank you, Edward. Indeed, we got some interns here joining us a second year, doing different types of life science jobs. The year before, she did investment and now working in a research company or startup. So I guess this is very important for them to bridge the academic studies with the real life experience, particularly in the context of a biotech startup or working in pharma. So any more questions? If not, then since we are now approaching slightly after 12 noon, so if not receiving any questions, let's call it a Saturday, and we'll be able to see you in a fortnight at Science Park. Really, the physical visit. We'll make sure that this will happen, and you guys be able to mingle a little bit more over lunch on that Saturday. So thank you very much, and happy Saturday. Thank you, the two speakers.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.